grand chessboard, where every piece is a potential move in the hands of an unseen player, artificial intelligence. But unlike chess, in this game, the rules are still being written, and the stakes are humanity's future. When we go to conferences, we hear often about use cases, about strategies in artificial intelligence, about business models, but we seldomly hear about what is the impact on humanity, what is the impact on us as humans, on the future of societies, on the future economies, on everything that we do here in the world. And this is going to be an overview about some of these kind of things that will go moving forward. Now, I want to mention also that this is also a little bit Western bias, developing bias, because there is almost 30% of the population right now, they still don't have access to internet. 700 million to 800 million people don't even have access to electricity. So the impact of these technologies will be diminished substantially for these populations. And hopefully in the future, everybody will be encompassing and taking part of these incredible technologies that are helping us moving forward in every single thing that we do here. You know, artificial intelligence, as you know, is nothing new. It's been in the 50s. The game changer was in the year 2021, approximately, with the emergence of the large language models, where instead of these tools being in the hand of expert people, now became in the hands of absolutely every person. You can all you have to do is talk to it, language, and gives you incredible results. That was a game changer for everybody else. Now these tools will continue to advance, will continue to be more capable, more effective, and with the emergence of quantum computers combined with advanced artificial intelligence, that's going to change the game for every single one completely. And it's going to be a little bit in the future, but that's something that we're going to be moving forward with for sure. Of course, when these things came, people were afraid, how is going to be impacting my job? What's going to be impact on society? What's going to be impact on my economics? And these are very valid concerns that everybody should consider. And we're starting to tackle these one by one, making sure we amplify the capacity, the positive capabilities, and we diminish the negative aspects of artificial intelligence to make sure we create a society and humanity that's actually going to be leveraging of the incredible capacity of artificial intelligence. Also, a lot of people compare artificial intelligence to the emergence of the Industrial Revolution, where people were afraid that the Industrial Revolution was going to displace a lot of the jobs, and eventually ended up creating substantially more jobs. But the problem here, and the difference is, we're no longer competing with manual labors. We're competing with intellect for the first time in humanity's history. So we're talking about doctors, engineers, accountants, lawyers. Every single job will be completely impacted with artificial intelligence, not only manual labor. And that's for the first time it's causing tectonic shifts across economic models and societies and everything else. Artificial intelligence is not good. Artificial intelligence is not bad. It's what we teach it to be. It's, first of all, there's the algorithms we're designing, we're programming, and the data that we're teaching these algorithms to be. That's what then going to determine what is the impact and what is the direction where these artificial intelligence systems are going to be going forward. And I'm going to kind of give you a quick overview, the good, the bad, and the ugly of artificial intelligence. The first one, and perhaps the most impactful field we've seen so far, is the field of medicine. It's incredible the advances we've been seeing in this domain. I've never seen anything like this before. Protein folding. So protein folding, to understand how the protein is folded, it could take a PhD student almost 4 to 5 years just to decipher the structure of a single protein. We have about 200 million proteins in the world. If we want to go the conventional way that we've been doing it, it would have taken us hundreds of thousands of years just to go through it. By understanding that, by AlphaFold, we can create new classes of medicine. We can create new classes of vaccines. We can create new materials, and it's going to help us advance the field of medicine exponentially. Another thing is, the capacity to be able to diagnose things at a speed we haven't seen before. Sometimes when you're being diagnosed with diabetes, it's not a single, point. You have to go multiple tests, and you have to do the accumulative, hemoglobin A1C, and it takes some time. But, without anything, there's an app now. You can talk to it in 10 seconds, and it can identify if you have diabetes or not by the changes in neurological system and the impact on the vocal cords. Who would have thought just an app could diagnose you almost with 100% accuracy if you have this kind of disease or not? Another thing is heart disease. I can go right now, take a scan of your retina, and I can tell you not only if you have heart disease or you're about to have heart disease, it could tell you if you can have Alzheimer's as well, with a simple retina scan, with, empowered by artificial intelligence. I mean, these are some of the incredible things. You can wear an app in a watch, and it tells you if you're going to have an arrhythmia 30 minutes before you have an arrhythmia. Imagine if you're driving a big truck, for example, on a freeway. How dangerous would it be if you have an atrial fibrillation, kind of an arrhythmia on the heart, and you lose consciousness and you cause a big accident. So these things are helping people's lives every single day. And this is just scratching the surface. It's nothing compared to what's coming in the near future. And perhaps one of the most interesting examples that I've seen here, ALS is a very complex disease. Unfortunately, there's no cure for it right now. And people that have it eventually lose the capacity to speak. So by implanting a chip in this patient's brain, using artificial intelligence, what we were able to decipher, whatever the patient was thinking, and interpret that thinking into words, and then using systems, using AI, we're able to speak, the system was speaking with his exact specific voice. So imagine a patient just thinking something, and the AI system is speaking on his behalf with his voice, with his intonation, with his personality. I mean, this almost seems like science fiction. And again, we're still at the baby stages of everything here that we gotta move forward. Of course, like anything else, comes with advantages and disadvantages. The challenge with artificial intelligence is the good things are amplified and the negative things could be amplified as well. So we need to make sure that how, to manage it properly. Of course, what a lot of people know that the more advanced these things get, we'll be able to displace a substantial amount of jobs, intellectual jobs, and manual laborers. Everything across the work will be impacted substantially. Privacy and security, I always say there's a balance. If you're going to have the best outcome from these systems, you have to give a lot of the privacy that you have. And where do you draw the balance between privacy and the things helping you as much as possible? I think that's something that's going to be, we need to look into to make sure it's impacted properly. Deepfakes are becoming more advanced every single day. At a point, it's going to be impossible to distinguish, is that a real person or not? And you don't need to be an expert, by the way. You can just sign up for a service on one of these web pages, and with minimum technical capacity, you will be able to create an incredible deepfake that takes really expert to be able to determine that's deepfake or not. That's probably one of the ugliest parts of artificial intelligence is weapons, automated with artificial intelligence, and hopefully we'll be able to have strict, very strict regulations at the UN level to be able to diminish the capacity from these kind of things. And the ugly, and I think this is something we need to start thinking about it, all of us together here, is first of all, the impact on humans, how it's going to be changing us. So in the olden days, when you want to learn about something, you go to the library, you look for books, you read, you form your opinion, and you understand about the topic. Then we evolved to the search engines. Even though search engines are not biased, they kind of have their categorization according to several criteria, but at least you had the capacity to have several web pages, several options, and you form your own opinion. Now we're moving to a point with these systems that you're asking it a question, it's giving you an answer, and people are taking that answer as a fact. Now you have to think about then, who controls this company? What are the impacts behind it? Just try asking a political, a religious, something more controversial, and you can see very big bias in all these systems. So we don't want to go to us the way we'll learn in the future, that we can use these kind of tools, ask questions, give an answer, and the answer we assume it's the right answer. We need to always question everything, making sure we come up with more research, get more diverse perspectives, more opinions, and then you form your opinion according to what you feel is fit. Don't get these things as an answer and move forward with it. And something perhaps more disturbing is actually right now we are able to read people's minds and with an uncanny accuracy. This is something called functional MRI, and functional MRI basically tells you which areas of the brain are functioning when you're thinking about certain elements. So we trained the system, artificial intelligence, and a functional MRI. We gave the patients images of a horse, and the artificial intelligence was reading the functional MRI and deciphering what was going on and correlating it to the pictures that the patient was reading. And then at the end, we stopped showing the pictures to the MRI, to the AI. We're just taking pictures, and from the signatures of the brain, artificial intelligence was able to predict what this person was thinking about. Can you even imagine? This is what the patients view, and this is the predicted image from artificial intelligence. It almost seems like science fiction. It's incredible. And the one on the right, the functional MRI is a snapshot where you do it and you're done. But the one here on the left, it was done by Meta. It's by deciphering the brain codes. You put electrodes on your brain, and depending on the signatures, it actually can also do the same thing. Not as accurate as a functional MRI, but we're getting there. These things are still primitive, and we're advancing them year by year and moving forward with that. And their systems also now, we can kind of estimate 60% of your thoughts being translated into text by putting some electrodes. It's incredible, the things that are moving forward here. Another thing that's going to be interesting is if there's 2 or 3 companies controlling artificial intelligence in the entire world, then all the back ends, all the infrastructure, all the ecosystem is based on these companies. Then they will have an impact almost into colonialism. They could dictate what they want in this region, they could dictate what they want in that region, and that's something also we need to divest from, and making sure we don't have a monopoly of certain companies that are controlling everything. Hopefully we'll have divestment, that we have a multiplicity of companies, that this thing is not able to happen as well. But even cults, I see people, we've seen trends in the future where we have very advanced technological systems, and people see them as something very spiritual. So even we see the emergence of a lot of cults in the future that people will be emerging. And again, if I have a cult following of 1 million people, and I'm in control of the narrative that comes from these systems. In fact, I'm controlling these people. These are at my disposition. I can tell them what to do and what not to do, what to believe and what not to believe. And that's why I call them prophets in the shadows sometimes. So also that's something we need to think about as we move forward. Of course, the biggest thing and the most impactful thing that people are concerned about is, will one day lose control of artificial intelligence once we reach to the very advanced levels of this technology. At that point, it's a game changer. It's like completely everything we know as humanity will be very, very, very different. We're still a long way from there, but that's a possibility that we need to make sure we work on it from today. We're not going to wait until the end. It's something that from today we need to make sure we're tackling it, we're resolving it, and moving forward at the right path. So like I said, everything you've seen right now at the basic levels, we're still nothing. We are the basic, weak artificial intelligence. I anticipate by the end of the decade, we'll reach the second phase of artificial intelligence, which is artificial general intelligence. And in this phase, we're going to have substantially more reasoning. The system will be at the same levels of a human brain, advanced reasoning, advanced problem solving, long-term memory, and it's going to be something that's going to help us also substantially speed up everything we're doing. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be a binary decision. By this year, we're going to reach it. I think by the end of the decade, there will be a lot of debates. A lot of the experts in the community will think we have reached that point, and a lot of the experts think we haven't reached it. But eventually, more or less by the end of the decade, we'll reach this insanely important point in the humanity's fate, which is artificial general intelligence. Now, regulations and frameworks are incredibly important as well. We need to make sure that we have systems that are fair, transparent, accountable, safe, secure. It preserves human rights, it preserves democracy, and making sure it's actually benefiting humans, not diminishing them. And because of that, we need to have proper regulations and frameworks and ethic things. And just to give an example, so this is one of the imaging systems that we use. And just to show you the inherent bias exists today, because of the data that these things were trained on were based on very biased, flawed data that were done by humans. So this is one of the systems. I wanted to create a nurse, an image of a nurse. And I gave it parameters for the light, for the shape, for everything else. And I tried it 10 times. 10 out of 10, the image was of a female when I asked you to create a nurse. Now I did the same thing for other functions. A doctor, a maid, a CEO, an employed person. Can you see the stereotypical bias that you have there? It's incredible. Like I said, AI is not good or bad. It's what we teach it to be. It's the data that's being trained on. And that's something we need to work on to make sure it's being trained on the best data, unbiased, that we can provide it as much as possible. Now, this is, I think, ethical dilemmas, in my opinion, could be more challenging than actually technology itself. So let me walk you through this scenario. So we've sent some astronauts to Mars, and the astronauts are walking, and something happened, the rocks fall, and 2 or 3 astronauts get injured. Behind these astronauts, we have an incredibly advanced humanoid robot walking to help them, walking behind them. But the problem is, this humanoid robot can only help one person. Which person do you choose to save? No, this is not a simple decision. This is not something you can program in advance and tell it to this, because there is multiplicity of scenarios that's beyond comprehension. As humans, we don't even think. We have other assessment, we have intuition even, to tell us which is the person that we need to save or not. But how do we pre-program these things in advance? Can you imagine the complexity and the difficulty of programming something like this, where you're actually programming people's fate in advance? It's very, very complex.
Oh.
The only time that I've been in meetings and boards where people ended in conflict and fights were one of these boards, ethical boards. Very complex field that we need to make sure we continue to work on it. Now, regulations is very essential as well. So we cannot put so many regulations because we will stifle innovation completely. And we cannot have everything just, like a Wild West, anybody can do with it whatever they want. We have to have a delicate balance between the proper regulations and ensuring everything that we continue to evolve and be creative and innovative and everything else. The European Union just came up with a very good, actually, sets of rules. They're very good, but in my opinion, they should not just be rules and just following. I think they should be evolving, learn what's the impact, get feedback, make modifying them. It shouldn't be just rules and forget about it. And it also could impact the people in your country. For example, if you put very strict rules for some certain things, very strict requirements, people would leave the country, will go to a different country. So you will lose even very good talent, and they will go to a place where the actual environment is more amenable for them to advance in the work that they're working on. And robots, right? It seems like a silly question, actually. It seems like a very silly question when you say, what do you mean this thing should have rights? Actually, today, we have actually robots on the sidewalks delivering pizzas, delivering food, and they have rights. They have a right to be there. They have a right to certain things. But the more we advance, it's going to be a different story. So I'm going to show you a parody, and then I'll continue the discussion and the dialogue after that. So you can see this is balls, this is rod, this is metal, it's nothing. But who felt bad for that little thing? So if you felt bad for this, imagine when they look like that. Imagine when they have personality. When they talk to you and they know more about you, more sometimes that you know about yourself. It's incredible that how, it's not an easy question that when we talk about that. And by the way, these humanoid robots will continue to advance year after year. And at one point, it will be very difficult for us to distinguish if they are humanoid robots or humans in the next, maybe 50, 60 years. And the interesting thing as well is that these robots will be potentially half biological, half technological. So we're working on something called organoid intelligence. So organoid intelligence is basically trying to do biological processing units. So we take stem cells and we change the epigenetics in the stem cells, and we create brain cells from these stem cells, and we create a processing unit where these brain cells can do the computation. Instead of the CPU, these brain cells are doing the computation for you. It requires a fraction of the energy. It's very easy to change and modify and adapt. And even the muscles will continue to be biologically driven. So we'll have almost hybrid species. And the way I think about it is it's going to be creating new species of the world, new artificial species that's going to be working hand in hand with humanity every step of the way. And even sometimes I think, even when you measure the population of the countries in the future, one day we might even say, hey, Jordan has, for example, 12 million people, and it has 2 million humanoid robots. It will be to that level of impact. And an interesting thing is we talk about is, what's going to be the impact on relationships? What is it that humanoid robots relationships in the future? That's something that we have to look into it. Imagine, for example, in the future, when these things become incredibly similar, incredibly advanced, like at the same scale as humans, and a male or female can order, for example, of the opposite gender, humanoid robot. You can choose the attractiveness parameters, you can choose the personality, you can even subscribe. You can say, okay, I want my robot to be able to do, to be one of the best chefs. I want it to be a musician. I want it to be a comedian. I want it to be a bodyguard. I want it to be medical doctors in these 20 specialties. It's going to be subscriptions. So each one of these attributes that you want, you buy the subscription, you pay $10, $15 per month, and you download it to this robot, and this actually going to be working with you hand in hand. The advantages will be beyond imagination, but at the same time, we have to look into ethics and privacy. Imagine who's the company behind these robots. If a robot like this is going to be with you 24 hours in your life, somebody else has access to this data. So it's things we have to think about as well. The privacy and ethics is very, very essential every step of the way as we keep moving and evolving this journey of artificial intelligence. But then even we talked about deep fakes and everything else. But one day also we'll be able to do cloning with humanoid robots of a person. Imagine we have almost an identical robot of a human as a CEO, and he goes and makes statements about the company. And then the next day the whole stock market crashes because of what he says. So these are things we need to think about. We're evolving and finding attributes for creating solutions for the deep fakes electronically, but also the physical forms as well will be something we need to look into as well. But also we need to go to the fundamental basic aspects of Asimov laws. Asimov laws is basically the laws that control the robots. What are the rules that these robots should abide by? And it's been for a long time by Isaac Asimov. It's a brilliant person. And the same rules we have abided by these rules for decades. Now the thing is, we have to change these rules. Because imagine if the robot is a surgeon. A surgeon, if he wants to do an incision on you to cure you, it's basically, if you think about the definition, he's injuring you. Even though it's for the better good, he's doing an injury to be able to cure you, but it conflicts completely with these rules. What if it's somebody in the law enforcement, and there's a person gonna injure 20, 30 people, but to be able to say that 20 or 30 people, you need to neutralize that person. So all these rules right now conflict with the foundational rules we have established for longest decades. So even the fundamentals have to be disrupted, and we have to move forward to something else. But AI humanoid robots going to go into the workforce right now. Factories will no longer going to be just manual, dumb, primitive robots. It's going to be robots like this, where they are extremely dexterous, incredible capacity, and infused with the highest degrees of intelligence as well, to be able to do the jobs of humans. So what is the impact of the job? So if companies and corporations start replacing humans and putting these humanoid robots to be able to do the jobs, then the revenue from the company from these things is going to be very different. In the United States, for example, almost 80% of the revenue that contributes to the country comes from individual people working, whether income tax or tax systems. But the corporations pay 10 to 15%. They don't pay much. So when the corporations start replacing humans and putting robots, who's going to pay the tax liabilities that's actually driving the governments around the world? We don't know yet. So this is something we need to start thinking about. What are the alternatives? What are the replacement for these economic models that we have right now? But also immigration. If you go to Europe right now, for example, the population of Europe is not growing at the speeds they're supposed to be. So they depend on continuing the economic engine of the country by importing immigrants from other countries. Now, when there's no need to import these immigrants, because why? Because you have humanoid robots, because you have advanced intelligence systems to be able to do the job for you, then how is the impact on the economic models? What is the impact economically on these countries that depend on the remittances of the workers are sending back to their countries? So it's going to change immigration, it's going to change the economies for multiple countries around the world, and all the stuff is all completely interconnected that we need to work on. So we hear a lot about artificial intelligence. Don't worry about it. Artificial intelligence is not going to take your job. A person using artificial intelligence will take your job. And I can tell you, artificial intelligence can take your job, and in fact is taking your job even today at the most primitive stages that we have. All you have to do is go to San Francisco. A lot of the taxi drivers are losing their jobs to autonomous cars. If you go to call centers, right, the majority of the call centers are completely automated with the highest degree of autonomy by advanced artificial intelligence systems. Even podcasts, just to give you an example how realistic these things are. So I uploaded a few of the articles that I did on artificial intelligence, and I told the system to create a podcast for me. A podcast that sounds realistic, sounds engaging. It did a better job than almost anybody else.
Today we're incredibly lucky to have insights from a true AI expert, Dr. Omar Hatamleh. He's someone who sees AI's incredible potential, but, and this is important, he also isn't afraid to ask those really tough questions, about the other side of the coin. Here's where things get really interesting. Dr. Hatamleh compares AI's current state to a baby just starting to walk. And it's spot on, right? We're amazed by ChatGPT churning out Shakespearean sonnets. But let's be real, those are just tiny baby steps in the grand scheme of things.
Absolutely. What we're seeing now is just a glimpse of what's coming with artificial general intelligence, AGI for short.
So imagine that not only for podcasts, you can use it for education. You can put, for example, a whole book, or you can put the notes from a class. And these systems will teach it to you in a way that's so engaging, it will be much, much easier for you to understand the context of the class in a way that's much easier, much more creative than the conventional way of learning.
And today we're incredibly lucky.
Also, the impact around different regions is going to be different. For example, India is going to be impacted differently than the US. Asia is going to be impacted different than Europe. So each region impact on artificial intelligence on the job and the economy is going to be different based on what economic models are driving these countries. And that's something we're changing. Just to give you an example as well, perhaps jobs are going to be impacted across the board except the creative jobs. Look at the music. In music, in the creative art like music, for example, there's going to be 3 fields. One field is where humans continue to develop music, like always done, amazing music. A second field, humans will develop music with the aid of artificial intelligence. And a third one is going to be artificial intelligence to deliver music completely without the impact of human. And to simplify things, you go to a market, you go to a store, you find a mug from China, mass-produced, or you find a mug that's mass-produced but it has a human element, somebody's painted on it, made it more impactful, and then you find an artisan one that's actually made by hand, painted by hand, and each one of them will find actually a customer. Each one will find a customer. So this is one of the fields. It's never going to take away jobs. It's going to actually expand the number of jobs that we have right now because of things like that. Just to give you an example on the music. So Shakespeare died before completing his final symphony. And all we had is few notes, few scratch notes, and few of the things he was written about what he was going to do in the symphony. And until now, the 10th symphony did not exist, and we didn't know what to do with it until recently using artificial intelligence. But Beethoven, when he was doing his symphonies, who thought that his 10th symphony was going to be created with artificial intelligence? It's incredible. It's exactly the same attribute, the same lines that you would have done. And we can do magic things right now with all these kind of things. The traditional work, you know that the 8 hours a day, 5 days a week was invented in 1926. It's been 100 years right now, and we're still doing the same thing. We are incredibly more efficient. We're producing things at exponentially higher level, and we're still working the same thing. We need to evaluate every single step across everything else and see how can we adapt, how can we change this, how can we evolve with the times, with the tools that we have, and start making changes across the board with every single thing that we're doing about. But also, population is going to be very important, and longevity. So the UN estimates we're going to have about 10 billion people by the year 2050. And the average lifespan right now for human, depending on developing countries or not, let's say it's in the mid-80s. These 4 elements is going to cause people to start living to 120 to 130 with no issues. So for the first time, we understand what are the fundamentals of aging. So we have 9 hallmarks that we finally understand what causes humans to age. And by the way, aging has been classified as a disease. And that means we can find a cure or a treatment one day. So imagine, to give you an example, so that the cells keep dividing, and until they reach 60, 65, they die, and that's it. Other ones get created. But at certain points, the cells don't die, and they don't produce. So they go into a state called zombie cells or senescent cells. And the older you get, the more you accumulate of those, and it causes inflammation across chronic diseases, inflammation. It causes you to age much faster. The telomere is shortening. The reason why cells don't continue splitting is because at the end of the chromosome, there is a protective layer, and the more they split, it gets shorter. So to prevent genetic mutations, it stops splitting after a certain time. We're starting with the field of artificial intelligence, finding what causes telomerase, for example. We use telomerase to keep these things from implementing the division without being shortened. We're understanding how to get rid of senescent cells. Everything in the body started with a stem cell, and the epigenetic gives the instruction for the cells to be, a heart cell, a kidney cell, or skin cell. And with the age, with the noise, with the environment, you start having a noise of these cells. So you might have in your hand a heart cell right now because of the epigenetic noise. So without going much into details right now, basically we know exactly what causes humans to age, and we're finding mitigations to every single one of them. The second one is AI. Now that we have the field of bioinformatics, so we can actually transfer biology into technology. So we can take your specific genetic information and create a digital twin of you. So the digital twin, using quantum computers, for example, and incredibly advanced artificial intelligence, we'll create a quantum digital twin, and we feed it your genetic information, your family history, your enzymes, your blood work, your lifestyles, and then if you have a disease, the system will run hundreds of thousands of simulations to find the perfect cure for you based on mixing multiple chemistries and chemical compounds. That's the first step. The second step, this system will be running ahead of time. So imagine that you, for example, is going 6 months ahead or 1 year ahead of you, and it tells you you're going to have a disease before you even have a disease, and I'm going to resolve it right now before you even develop it. Can you imagine the impact that's going to have on people's longevity? It's going to be very, very interesting. We'll be able to print people's organs, again, based on your genetic information, with no rejection, with nothing. And we don't have to wait for a donor. You can go to the lab and be able to print any organs that you want in almost a day. That's completely without rejection to the body. And then the last one is nanobots. Will be very advanced, complex nanobots that will go into the immunity system and help your body fight multiple things and help your body with the immunity system. So how is that going to help the longevity of us? How is it going to change us moving from an average lifespan in the mid-80s to 110, 120, 130? How is that going to impact multiple things? For example, the retirement system. Retirement system in multiple countries is based on people dying in the late 70s. If people start living to 110, 120, it collapses completely. There's no sense in retirement systems anymore. What are the economic models of the future? When actually artificial intelligence, humanoid robots, advanced technologies can do the majority of the jobs, and we have a population of 10 billion people. What is the future economic models going to look like? Definitely it's not going to be the one we have today. So we need to think about it collectively, making sure we work on it from every single organization across the world to come up with alternatives to the economic models that we have today, and making sure we're moving in the right path. But also, society as a whole is changing. I remember when we were young, we used to talk to people over the phone or in person. The next generation is different. Society, phase 2, is the young people spend the majority of their time on the phone, texting. They're communicating between human to human, but it's not happening face to face for the vast majority of the time. It's actually electronic means of communication. So, and that, by the way, there's a lot of things that you lose from nonverbal, because a lot of the communication happening just by visual, by looking at the face of the person, by the expression. So we're even losing this kind of things. But the interesting thing is we're also creating digital tribes. So a tribe is defined by a group of people with the same religion, with the same ethnicity, with the same geographical relation, working together. But now we have a new society called digital tribes that could be from different places, but they have interest in certain things electronically, and they have forming societies and so on. The challenge now, which is the next phase, is people will spend more time with artificial intelligence systems. Imagine when you start, having a trust with this system, it knows a lot about everything. he understands you, he has 100% compatibility with your personality, you're gonna feel so close to this system. And eventually, like we mentioned, that system will change from having software to becoming actually a humanoid robot. And you're gonna have a humanoid-robot relationship that's gonna be beyond anything we've done before. Let me ask you, the system ask you a question here.
Hello, everyone. I am excited to see so many of you here today. So I have a question. How many believe that advanced AI systems could one day replace human companionship?
What do you guys think? It's a reality. Believe me, it's 100% reality. You know, the human relationship is very complex. You know, it's very difficult to find, you know, the synergy, the synchronicity between people's personalities. So when you have a system that you have designed, it has everything you know, it has incredible capacity mentally. Your personality match is insane. It's completely 100% accurate. Then how is that going to impact the fabric of society as we know it today? How is it going to impact the relationships between people? You know, that's not an easy question to answer, and we'll see where we end up going. But also, physically, we're evolving as well. Imagine now, we talk to medical doctors, ophthalmologists, and they tell us they're seeing, you know, myopia pandemic like they've never seen since the start of their careers. Because people are on their phone, short distances, their eyes are getting tired, and the amount of people wearing glasses is expanding substantially. Now imagine the thumbs, the problem with the thumbs, arthritis. You know, imagine the neck. People are spending a lot of time, you know, kind of bending. So physically, our physical forms are being impacted substantially by technology as well. You know, but another thing we were talking about the other day in our discussion is people are not bored anymore. They're constantly, you know, on their phone or the social media, flicking pages, talking, doing things, and you get creativity by being bored, looking at the sky, having nothing, and that's when the best ideas comes to you. If you're never having these points, how are you going to be creative? How is going to be humans' creativity impacted by all these kind of things? And by the way, our attention span, they've done studies that tells you our attention spans as humans right now is less than a goldfish. Can you imagine that? A goldfish. And our attention span, because of everything going on with technology, is diminishing, going below a goldfish. But perhaps the one I'm worried about the most is our cognitive ability. So they've done studies, I've told you, that people over certain age, when they stop driving, their cognitive ability went down substantially. Traffic lights behind you, what's happening here. And when you stop driving, your cognitive ability substantially start diminishing. So if you look at the future, it's a fact we're going to have driverless cars. You're not going to be able to drive. We're going to outsource a lot of decision making, a lot of the thinking that we do to intelligent systems. So as these things become more advanced and we depending on it more and more, and we depend on them to make decisions and think for us, what is the impact on the human brain, on the human intellect as we keep evolving as humanity, as a species? That's something we need to pay close attention to, because that's going to be extremely impactful in every single thing that we do. I see also a circle, and I call it digital metamorphosis. So you create an incredibly advanced artificial intelligence system and start looking at genetics, and you know, for example, CRISPR can do certain changes to the genes and making changes. So artificial intelligence can suggest what is the best changes to biology, to genetics, to create better humans. Better humans with higher IQ can potentially create better algorithms. Better algorithms create more humans. So it's going to be a metamorphosis loop that's going to continue to evolve and change who we are as humans, as the basic foundation as humans as well. Collective learning is a very important element as well. When we learn, you know, we learn individually. I'm reading a book, I'm learning for it. Obviously, as societies, we transfer knowledge from generation to generation, from institution to institution, but as humans, we actually learn individually, and it's difficult for us to share everything else. With artificial intelligence systems, it's collective learning. If I have 1 million cars right now on the streets, driving driverless cars with complete autonomy, whatever single cars learn, instantaneously all the other cars will learn it at the same time. So can you imagine the speed of learning that these electronic systems are having? How does it compare to humans? How can we keep up with the pace? How can we keep up with all these kind of things? It's going to be very, very challenging. But also academic institutions, that's another topic we're talking about with Dr. Mubir, is we're graduating people that are not ready for the job market. If you have a degree that's 5 years, for example, By the time you graduate, technology has changed so much. You go to the industry and they'll tell you, man, I don't need these people. They have no idea what to do with the job. So they're switching from graduates and looking for specific skills that you don't need to university to do that. So how do you change the curriculum in universities to be more adaptive, to be more proactive, to be more connected with industry? So by the time we're graduating people, they already have a job that's perfect. They can do the job from day one. And right now with the challenge across the whole entire world, by the way, and we need something to work on it to make sure we have alternatives for all this stuff as well. We evolved as humans to be farmers, to be hunters, to be craftsmen, and things change very, very slowly. Everything was linear. The challenge right now is we're living in an exponential world. Everything is moving exponentially. But the way we evolved as humans, we're not capable of adapting, and we're not capable of evaluating the incredible fast changes exponentially. And that's something we need to do, is change, fill the gap between exponentiality and linearity, and find how can we start embarking and leaving the linearity thinking and jumping on exponential way of thinking, because otherwise we're going to be completely irrelevant in the face of these advanced systems that are coming here to the future. Individualized education is going to be also something of the future. Somebody's got to learn the language. I'm trying to teach somebody certain skill. Everybody's different. I mean, if you're teaching a message to the same 30, 40, 50 students, everybody learns differently. You can give messages, for example, that's fine, but when trying to do learning, every person learns differently. So we need to make sure we have an individualized education that caters to every single person's intellect and takes you from A to Z at a fraction of the time that we have here. We talk about learning, but how about unlearning as well? You know, there's a lot of things that we need to forget. There is a lot of skills and things that we learned is irrelevant from now on. We need to unlearn them and start learning completely new things that are going to be helpful for us to move forward and then embark in the future that we're working on together here. The emphasis on IQ is going to be less and less, you know, because these intelligent systems will be incredibly more intelligent than us in terms of IQ. So we need to start paying more attention to emotional intelligence. We need to start paying more attention to adaptability quotients. We need to change constantly learning, constantly adapting. We need to think out of the box. We need to think innovatively. We need to think exponentially. So all these things are elements that all of us have to be thinking about to be able to be completely relevant. And in the future also, not too distant future by the way, all of us will have the capacity to insert a chip, and you already have a different language. You have learned English, you've learned French, you've learned different skills. And that's going to be a reality, that's not science fiction. Now the question that we're asking ourselves is, we need to make sure that all these systems all these systems are available to everybody all around the world. We're not going to create this system for the rich. So if you're rich, you can have these implanted. If you're not, we need to make sure whatever we create, we don't want to create more classes in society. Whether we're talking about longevity, we're talking about learning, with these chips, everything has to be transversally across all sides of society. That's something that I constantly think about. You know, sometimes I see a bird, and the bird is going and building an incredible nest. Who taught the bird how to do that? Nobody. It's embedded in the genetic of the bird. So I keep thinking, could one day tweak the genetics of an embryo that actually a person is born with a Nobel Prize in physics, for example? If birds can do it, if other animals can already come up and know how to do certain skills genetically, can one day translate that things into humanities and being able to change the game completely? This is far away from now, but it's a possibility potentially in the future as well. And I keep saying, today, draw a line. Whatever made you successful in the past, I guarantee you, it's not going to be the same that's going to make you successful in the future. You have to be completely different skills, different attributes, different ways of looking at every single thing. That's what's going to make you successful moving forward from now on. And then we talk about, you know, always what's going to be the strategy in the next 5 years, what's going to be the strategy in 10 years. And people use the limitations we have today to be able to do strategy. And I say, when you're strategizing about the future, don't limit yourself with the limitations of today's technology, because it's going to be very different. So take a foresight overview, see how things are evolving, and jump on that, and then create a strategy based on these specific attributes. And that's going to be much, much more helpful. We need to connect the dots. We need to be connecting dots in ways we haven't done it before. We have to completely think differently. Our way of thinking has to evolve in ways that's completely different than the ways we're used to. and be able to take us to a different place. This is one of my favorite topics. It's called XRP, for example. You can use artificial intelligence to find completely new uses and create economic models in the tens of billions of revenue, because you're looking at things that were invented and find completely different use for them. And just to give you an example, so this person in Japan, in Argentina, they were having dinner and they were trying to open one of the bottles they were drinking, and the cork fell inside the bottle, and nobody was able to get it. So they did it, bet who can get the cork out of the bottle without breaking the bottle. And eventually this person put a plastic bag, inflated it, and got it out. And he went and he kept thinking, that was an interesting solution. I wonder if I can use it somewhere else. He was talking to a gynecologist, friend of his, and they came up with something called hold-on device. It was being used in developing countries to help deliver kids. They've saved thousands and thousands of kids in developing countries where they don't have access to advanced medical technology. Based from what? From a simple thing, from a bottle. So we need to think completely differently, think outside the box, connect dots, and find solutions for something that exists for one solution, and find other alternatives, other solutions that will create substantially more value compared to everything that we have right now. This is an interesting phenomenon called starling murmurations, where we have thousands of birds flying instantaneously, and you never see birds colliding. It's insane. And the thing is, in the near future, we're going to have skies with flying taxis, with drones. The skies will be completely filled with these flying elements. Can we learn from this and potentially being able to understand how do birds do this incredibly advanced synchronization of flying, and implement that into technology, and we can implement them into the skies of the future to be able to create the best things possible. Diversity is incredibly good. I can bring you right now 20 engineers, 30 engineers, and all of us will think the same, because this is what we used to. You can bring 20 doctors, 30 doctors, the same thing. And we need to diversify as much as possible. This is a bike company in the Netherlands. And the problem with this one, when they were shipping it, I think about 60–70% were being damaged during shipping, and the company went almost out of business. Of course, as an engineer, what do you do? So, well, I'm going to change the section from metal. I'm going to make it from plastic to metal. I'm going to increase the cross section, the diameter, because this is what engineers do. And then came up this person that was sitting with them, who was non-technical. He said, why are you wasting your time with this? Why don't you just print a copy of the TV on the box? And people will think you're transferring or shipping a TV. 5 cents solves completely the problem. And that's the power of diversity. The power of getting away from the groupthink mentality that we often fall into, be able to do something like this. Another one that's actually to tell you that we have to think completely outside of our domains. So this is a potato chip company that we're actually trying to get grease out of the potato chips. And conventionally, the way they do it, they shake it as much as possible to remove the grease. And the problem is a lot of pieces end up being broken. And so they put a challenge outside. I think they offered it to hundreds of thousands of people all across the world. And you're never going to believe where the solution came from. From a violinist. The violinist was playing a note, and the specific note was resonating with the natural frequency of the grease, and the grease was being displaced from the potato chip without impacting the structural integrity of the potato. And imagine a solution like this. So again, look outside of your domain for solutions. The key is diversity, and you come up with solutions that you never thought existed before. The lines of learning between industries before technologies in the medical domain used to be only applicable for the medical domain. Technologies and transportation used to be. Now technology across any place is applicable across everywhere else. Look at 3D printers. We can use them for creating parts. We can use them for creating houses, for printing food, for printing clothes, for printing even organs. So a single technology is transversal across the entire technology, and that's going to be incredible across the board. So we need to also work with startups. We need to work with people and that don't work for big corporations. Because sometimes you might work with startups that give you an amazing idea that you'd have taken a conventional corporation multiple millions of dollars a lot of times. And we need to be visionaries as well. See what's happening, how is everything changing, and embrace an element of visionary as well. We need to team and work resources, work with government, industry, academia, non-government, startups, because that's where you get the power. The power is by combining efforts across multiple domains, multiple ecosystems. That's going to be giving you the advantage that we need to be able to move forward. And the key here is you cannot be reactive anymore. If you are reactive, I guarantee you, 100%, you're gonna be completely out of the game. You need to be completely proactive. You need to see what's gonna happen before it happens. You have to have an element of foresight. That is the only thing that's gonna give you an advantage and keep you from going completely out of the way and becoming irrelevant in everything that you're doing. And it's interesting, we spend millions of dollars trying to train people becoming more creative, more innovative. Kindergartners are the smartest, the most creative, humans in the world. They've done studies actually comparing top company CEOs with toddlers, and the toddlers were able to be so proud that we're substantially more creative than the actual CEOs. So, and at the end, we keep, spending that and creating training classes. So why don't we change the whole environment? Why don't we change a place where we don't diminish the creativity of humanity? As you keep growing up, you say, oh, this is difficult. No, you can't. Or, there is no way you can do that. Oh, this is for smart people. We need to change the way we create, new generations, and have them think in a whole different way, where they continue to be creative and innovative without diminishing and stifling the way of thinking that's creative across the way. Also, something simple, probably silly, we tend to use titles like manager, director, supervisor. So if you think about it, they're a little bit demeaning. I'm managing you, I'm directing you, I'm supervising you. But how about if we change them and we start using other titles actually to create a better, system in the company, better things. Everything we show you here today about the future, this is one point. This is my perspective on the things I've learned, the things I've read, the things I've evolved with. But this is one dot. If you're going to look at the future and how the future is evolving, you cannot draw a curve with one point. You have to get multiple perspective from different people. Talk to people across the board, and collectively you'll be able to come up with a chart that tells you where the future is evolving in a way that's completely different than anything we've done. And by the way, we need to be an ecosystem. The forest? The forest is not individual trees. It's a single ecosystem. All the trees in the forest are connected under the floor, under the sand, with a fungus web. And they communicate with them, they transfer, nutrition. Sometimes when it's infestation, they kind of alert each other. So it's a whole ecosystem, and we have to work at the same thing. We cannot work individually as trees. We have to work in an ecosystem across the board and working with everything else. There's something really interesting when people go to space. It's called the overview effect. When they go there, their whole life actually changes, and they don't see countries, they don't see borders. They see a beautiful blue planet, and it transforms their life completely for forever. And that's the same thing I keep thinking about everything we do. When you're strategists, you have to get out of your where you work, your business, your economics. You think about what's happening geographically, what's happening economically, what's happening technologically, what's happening geopolitically, and then come back and you'll have a very different perspective of everything that you're doing and moving forward with that. When we talk about the future, we think that there is a singular future, one point. The future is this or the future is that. In fact, there is no single future. There's multiple future. And which future we end up using depends on every and each one of us here. So imagine if we put our collective intellect together to create the best future for the next generations. I think the possibilities would be endless. Thank you very much.